Okay, guys. Basically, as internet and the usage of the internet has grown, so even all the businesses started utilizing this particular technology to expand themselves. Correct now? That means so. Suppose a company is there in location A, it wants to give the service to the entire world. So irrespective of the location of the particular company, it wants to give its services throughout the world, or it wanted to take the advantage of this particular internet as a technology. So earlier, what used to happen, people used to develop an application that used to be, we need to take that piece of software and we had to install in our own machine. Very simple. So let me just show you. So assume that this is your PC, and what we need to do, we had to suppose there is a software or there is a piece of software. Then you had to take them in a CD, or you need to take them, for example, just like this. You must be knowing all these things, but still I'm saying these things. So it used to come from here to here. So the developer used to send them. So that used to come in the form of a CD, and over a period of time, we were able to download that particular piece of software from the internet, and we used to install on our PC. So what is the advantage and what is the disadvantage? So we all know that software is developed once, and we distribute the software, whoever wants to use our software. Correct? So as soon as we distribute, it becomes the responsibility of the end user, or the client is the client. Okay, so then this particular piece of software which comes in my CD, I have to install it. So I need to take care of all these things. I need to maybe okay, install. Okay, I need to boot it up, or I need to turn on that particular software, and then I need to start using it. Installation, and I will be having all the maintenance of it. Suppose if it get crashes, so I need to do the maintenance, or I need to what do you say? आपको भी रन करना पड़ेगा. Then if something goes wrong, आपको maintain भी करना पड़ेगा. Okay, and if you get any errors and all, so what you need to do, you need to if there is a bug, report bhi karna padega. Okay, my software is not working for me. Correct? No? We don't know what environment you are running. बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा client को भी, and the one who is developing that software, the producer, the company will also have to have a lot of resources to take care of all the issues that are coming from a client. So if you have a client in very minimum count, for example, you have 100 clients, then it is easy to maintain. If you have hundreds of them, if you have thousands of them, so what will happen? If this number grows, if your client number grows, can you imagine, guys, what will happen? What are all the consequences, guys? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
हाँ, yeah. समझ में आ रहा है क्या दिक्कत होगी? The one, let's say we are all developing a software, and so we are all living in different towns. Let's say we all will become spokes for the company to fix the client errors, what will happen? You may have to go to the client and fix the troubleshoot it and come back now. Am I correct? He will call up, okay, I'm not able to run this. I'm getting a blank screen. I'm getting some errors. What will happen, guys? The maintenance and the bug fixing will be very tedious now, because there will be thousands of customers, thousands of them will going to get, maybe each gets 10 errors, then there will be 10,000 errors and 10,000 issues will be there, because they all will be running in a different laptops, different versions of their OS. समझ में आ रहा है ना? And it will be a very, very complicated game, or very, very complicated issue. Guys, is this clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Correct ना? हाँ. इसलिए what solution they found is to, instead of, see, suppose if let's say the software guy, one who is developing like us, wants to roll out a new version. Let's say you want to release version 2 of his software. Then what is supposed to do, guys? Let's imagine that there are multiple clients for him. Then what he is supposed to do? What will happen? Guys, getting the problem statement, no? They all have to receive the software CD and they all have to reinstall, no? Guys, what is happening? I'm not getting any response.
Yes, sir.
Correct, no? So it is a very, very big task to get to update anything. Correct, no? All of you have to install my software once again. So once again complaints aayega. So once again everything will has to take place. So it's a major operation. So this was the issue when you go for releasing the software for every client has to go through all these issues, and even a development will also be very, very difficult. So what is the solution for this problem? The solution is something called the client server architecture. Okay, so what is client server architecture? So there will be a server, one who is developing the software. He will going to install and maintain this particular software. Okay, 1 second, guys. Yeah, sorry guys. So what I was talking about, so they found a new way of delivering the software. So they thought of developing a server. Okay, this will be my server. So this particular server will going to run as a daemon process. So it will be running continuously. Just imagine turning on your laptop and installing a software and giving access to the entire world to access my piece of software. Okay, so this particular server will be a web server. So for example, there is something called as a Tomcat. So this Tomcat will be able to run on your hardware, and it will be a demand process. It will never stop. It will be continuously running. So in the sense, whatever application we will going to develop, that particular piece of software will be executed by our Tomcat web server. Tomcat, let's say web server. As a developer, this will be my server. I'll get into these things little more deeper later. So this will be my Tomcat. It's a simple one. So as a developer, what I need to do, I don't have to maintain this particular server. There are other experts who will take care of this particular server. Only thing is I'm supposed to develop a software and give it to the deployment. Deployment means, so there will be some experts, they will going to run our application on this particular server. So we need to find a technology so that is suitable to run on these particular servers. Okay, so Java is a wonderful thing that can be developed in any platform and it can run on any platform. We know that Java is platform independent. Correct now? So that means any operating system you can have as a development system, but ultimately it will be able to run on my servers. Okay, so Java is already equipped with capabilities of running on a server. So what we do, we as a developers, we develop, okay, and we're going to maintain, or we're going to do the bug fixing in only one place. Correct now? So if we can manage, or if we can troubleshoot the errors that will going to happen in my server, only those errors I need to do the troubleshoot. Okay, so bug fixes will going to happen only in one system. So I have to maintain only the server errors. Okay. So I will have fix errors at server location with respect to my application. I don't have to fix the server errors. I have to fix only my application errors. Suppose if there is a server error, so then there will be a server maintenance engineer will be there who is expertised in that particular server issue. He will take care of it. Okay, I will focus on my application. Okay. Fix errors at server location with respect to your application. So I have to only fix at one location. I don't have to do with all the customers. So all my customers will going to access only my server. Right? They will have all have a same destination to access my piece of software. But also, if I have to roll out a new version, so what am I supposed to do, guys? Do I have to give this piece of software to everybody, or should I just have to upgrade my server? In one place I have to do it now. Simple, no? All are very, very simple. It looks like very simple, but they have achieved technically. Look at the concept, very simple. So whatever release you have to do, you have to just upgrade or release. Okay, basically you will be doing error fix. Okay, upgrade. Correct now? So all maintenance job you have to do it in one place. You don't have to go anywhere else. Okay, is this clear, guys? So what clients will be doing? So we'll be having a thin client. So thin client means, see, for example, so you'll be having your browsers. Okay. So any internet browser using any internet browser, I will be able to access the application which are there on my server. So for example, so there will be a cloud. I will be able to send a request to this particular server. Okay. And I will be able to get a response from this particular server back to my browser. Okay. This communication will going to happen over the internet. Okay. So whatever request you are making, so that usually will be through an URL. So there will be something called as a universal resource locator, through which I will be able to send a request to this particular server. So how it will be possible to send some request to some server which is remotely somewhere there? We don't know the location. So these things is possible because of one particular protocol, something called as HTTP protocol. So whatever request you are sending, all those requests will be in a format of HTTP request. What is this HTTP? HTTP is a protocol. Protocol means there is a network. So even you have to get connected with the internet, even a server will also be having an internet connection, and the particular server will going to have something called as a URL. Okay. And through that URL, you will be making some request. Sorry. Right. So similarly, my server will be able to recognize your request, okay, and it will going to process whatever you have requested. For example, you want to get the login page of your application. So then my server will be delivering you that login page into your browser. Then you will going to provide the username and a password what you have registered. Let's say you already registered with the website. Then whatever username and password you have given, it should be able to recognize you with the given username and password. If it is authenticated, then it has to send you some response. That response is called as HTTP response. So आपको ये, as soon as you make a request, it will going to send you HTTP response. So just like whenever you are making a request, you can send some data along with this HTTP request. Similarly, server can also send some data along with this particular HTTP response. That particular data I will be able to see in my browser. So there are some frameworks using which I'm going to create this client side of the application. So for example, this is called as GUI development or client side application development. Okay. So it will be done using some softwares, like currently there are something called the JavaScript libraries. Okay. Or some popular frameworks in Java using JavaScript. They are called as Angular, and there is something called as a React. Okay. We can use anything. So both are very competitive. So we can use either Angular or React. They are all the frameworks, so using which we're going to develop this particular front end. So once we do this development of the front end, from this I'll be able to make a request to the backend, and my backend will be able to give a response. That response I'll be once again able to display you using any of these particular frameworks. Okay. So now, just like how we have a framework or a technology for developing the front end that will execute in our internet browsers. So similarly, we have technologies that can be used to develop an application that can execute on this particular Tomcat server or any web server. Okay. So for Java technology, we have a popular one called as a Spring framework. So using the Spring, we are going to develop an application. So the application which we develop using this particular Spring framework, will be able to understand what request you're sending. And similarly, it will be able to send you response like what you are expecting. Suppose you are expecting a login screen, it will give you login screen. Suppose you are after logging in, you are expecting a welcome page and you want to see some, what are all the products available. So you will be able to, my backend will be able to deliver you what you are, what you want to see. Correct. Let's say you want to update your profile. So you will be able to send a request. So my server will be able to send you the response. So let's say you want to modify your email ID. You're going to send a request. So that particular request will be processed and my server will going to tell you it got successfully updated. Okay. So there will be an interaction between my application in the front end and my application in the back end. So I'm the one who will be doing the development of this particular entire stack, let's say. So then I will be knowing what is the URL on which I'm supposed to make a request. Okay, what kind of request I can make through this HTTP, that's what we need to explore now. So this is the overview, guys. So there will be a continuous interaction between my browser and my server, and that particular interaction will going to happen through a protocol called as HTTP protocol. So if you get this much, then we can explore more about these HTTP protocols. Any questions, guys, here? Guys, any questions?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. So now what we need to understand here, just a second, guys. Just a second, guys. Sorry, guys. So give me 5 minutes. I'll be back. Meanwhile, I want all of you to explore this particular link. Let me just give you a link. Once. One second. Guys, I have sent you a link. All of you, please quickly go through this particular link. Give me 5 minutes. I'll be back. Guys, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
please,
Okay, sir.
please go through this link. I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Okay, sure, sir.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, guys. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So basically, we want to understand this. What is this HTTP? HTTP is basically a protocol. Okay. So two application, my client application will be able to communicate with my backend application. Okay. So my front end, I'll be doing using some frameworks like Angular or React. So similarly, my backend, I'll be developing an application using the Spring framework. Both are applications. So both are independent applications which will be running on different servers. My backend will be running on Tomcat's web server. Similarly, my front end will also be running on a server which is called as a node server. Okay, so both are applications. Both will be able to communicate. So they need one application layer protocol called as HTTP protocol. Okay, so through this, they will be able to send a request and they'll be able to send a response. Okay, so the one who's make a request is my client, and the one who's going to respond is my server. Okay, I want all of you to go through this. Here, what is important is we need to understand what is the stateless protocol. So it does not remember your history. It is stateless. Once you make a request, so it will be having a mechanism to respond back to that requester. Okay, it does not remember you. Okay, once the request processing is over, once it sends you the response, it will not have any information about who made the request, what was the request, etc. So my protocol does not remember anything. It is stateless. Okay, and immediately there won't be any connection also. Okay, it won't have any fixed connection between my client and a server. Okay, so that's why my server will be free to take up multiple requests at the same time. So it will going to have its own technology to accept multiple requests, and it will be able to process the request in a parallel way and respond to them simultaneously. Okay, so now let's try to understand some of the things which are there. So for example, here you need to understand what is HTTP cookie. So there are some standards. Based on the standards, my browser has implemented these HTTP cookies. So over a HTTP protocol, server can create the cookies in the browser. So sometimes whenever you open some websites, it might ask you to give the permission to store the cookies. Cookies is a piece of information that, as an application developer, wants to keep some data regarding the user in their own browsers. So those piece of information, we call it as a cookie. Okay, cookie will have a certain lifespan, and after the lifespan, the cookie will get expired. Okay, so later on, we can also discuss about these cookies, how we can create these cookies and how we can set these expiration, etc. So similarly, guys, there is something called as a cross-origin resources sharing. See, suppose just think that we have created one domain. Domain means we have created one URL. So in that particular URL, see, suppose I am the Google, let's say Google has created one server called google.com. So if a Google is making a request to Google server, or Google is creating one front end and a back end, let's say. Okay. So the particular front end application and a back end application should have the same domain. Okay. Domain means the origin of the request should be same. If the origin is same, then we say that then as per the specification, it does not have any issue. Suppose if a domain A wants to access domain B, okay, then there is something called as a cross origin resource sharing. Domain A wants to access domain B contents, or domain B wants to access domain A contents. If you have to access the resources from the same domain, then there is no restriction, because it is your own website, your own application. You can access anything because you are the developer, you are the owner. But if it is a request coming from a different domain, then you have to permit it. That is, naturally, my internet, my HTTP request will get blocked if it is coming from a different origin. Okay, so I want all of you to read about this. Okay, so now let me just to show you this image. So let me just take some highlighter. Okay, so let's say we design the front end. So in this front end is running on domain.a.com. Let's say this is a domain.a.com. As of now, you just understand a domain is nothing but your URL. This is domain.a.com, which is having, or which is accessing resources from domain A as well as domain B. So domain A is accessing domain A server. So then there is no issues. It is the same origin request, always allowed. Whereas if you are making a request from a different domain, domain A is making a request to domain B, then there is something called as a cross origin request. So these requests are coming from outside the domain. Who is having a problem? My web server B is having a problem, because B is getting request from domain A. For my web server B, I should inform that domain A will going to make a call, or domain A can also make a request to domain B. So as I am the developer of domain B, I should allow the access from domain A. It is called as cross-origin resource sharing. Across different origins, you should permit to share the resources. Otherwise, naturally, it is not allowed. From a different domain, you create your own server and you cannot start accessing google.com. Google should allow you to access its resources. Let's say you create one server today called abc.com. Yes, you can make a request because that's your own server. Okay, so this is all about CORS policy. So there is a standard in the internet. So they termed it as cross-origin resource sharing, and they introduced this particular policy. So you guys can read about this evolution, how it started, how it got successful, etc. So similarly, guys, so suppose whenever my client and a server wants to have a session, for example, you have logged into your banking application. So as soon as you start log in and then you start using it, after some time, it might tell you that your session has expired. Correct? No? So there is some terminology called as a session. So I can limit the duration of engaging my client with my server. As soon as, see, for example, it comes with the problem of authentication. So once you log in, and then you will have a session, as long as this session is valid, you will be able to communicate with the server. Once the session overs or expires, you may have to re-log in. So you will not be able to access the server once the session expires. So as a programmer, you will be able to take care of the session with respect to a particular client. Because of the security issues, you might have to give a lesser session, or if there is no much security concerns, you can also give a longer session for a particular client to communicate or engage with my server. Okay, so And also as a part of this HTTP, so there are various sections in that particular request, which is called as a HTTP header. So header will going to have, see, suppose a client is making request. So who is making a request to which server? So that particular header will going to have the source and a destination IPs. You can say that maybe you must be having an idea, like there will be something called the network address. Okay, who is making a request to which server you are making a request. All those things will be there in something called the HTTP headers. As the name suggests, so it will be a part of your HTTP request, and सबके आगे ये header हो गए. So header will contain all the informations. Okay, so similarly, so these, it has got some HTTP request methods. This is important for us. What kind of different request I can make through this particular HTTP? This protocol has been designed with these default methods, guys. See, what do you mean by a client server application? So my server has got some resources. So 1 second. So my server has got some resources. So this resource may be an image, this resource may be an audio, video, or just a data. Information about, let's say, the employees. Okay, I want to get information about employee X. So then from my front end, I need to make an HTTP request. So that particular HTTP request will be GET request. So whenever you need certain resource, you should make a HTTP GET request. So this method, this is a method available in HTTP protocol. Okay, that is making me to send the request from my browser to the server. Okay, so that particular GET request, the representation of this GET is to get a specified resource. So you should use this method whenever you need to retrieve a data from a server. Okay, similarly, it will going to have a head portion. So this particular head portion will going to be automatically taken care by my application level internally. Okay. So similarly, guys, so this particular head will, this particular GET will not going to have the particular resp. 1 second, guys. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's focus on some HTTP methods which are important for us. So just like GET, we also have a head method. But if you make this head method, ask for a response identical to GET request, but without a response body. So that means it is also a GET information, but it will not asking for any response from the particular server. Okay, so importantly, we have something called as a post method. So this particular method, we're going to use it to whenever we want to send or create a new resource on my server. Let's say I want to register myself. So we have created one application. All of us will develop one application. So that particular application, somebody wants to register. Then that particular client application, what we have developed, we're going to use a HTTP post method to post their information to our server. So along with this HTTP request, they will be able to send the information about themselves. Let's say their name, their email ID, their telephone number, etc., etc. They're going to send it using a post method. So post method can carry some data along with that request body. So for example, so suppose I want to register myself. Then using this front end, I will be able to, let's say, for example, it will going to give you one web page called as a registration page. You will going to add all the details in your web page. So for example, so there is a registration page is there. So it will going to have all your fields. Okay, something like this. So then you will have one button, and inside that button, you will be having something called as a submit or register. So for example, you will going to specify your name here. Okay, your password here, etc. So you want to register yourself, and as soon as you click here to register, so then using my front end framework, I will be doing one post activity. So I'll collect all your information, and I will be sending the data using HTTP post, and your data will go along as a body in the HTTP. So that is called as HTTP request body. We call it as a request body. So in this particular request body, is meant to send our payload, or it is meant to send our data. So in this request body, so we will be sending the information about the user. So then my server will be able to understand, because you are making a post request and you are sending some data along with the request body, there is a payload. That data it will be able to read, the backend will be able to read it, and it will be able to store that particular data in my database. Okay, then when you try to log in, I will be able to, my backend server will be able to check whether you are giving a right username and a password. Okay, so that means while making a request, that is a post request from the front end, you will be able to send some data to the backend or send some data to the server. Okay, that data will be going as a part of your request. So you are making a HTTP post request. So in that particular HTTP request, so there will be something called as a header, there will be something called as a body. Okay, so I'm just giving you the overview of that particular HTTP request. So it will be having two sections, guys. This HTTP request has two parts. One is a head part. ठीक है, so दूसरे part होंगे इसकी body. So in this body, so it is just a message. So this particular message will be having the destination address and also the body. In that body, so we will be adding all these informations that a user wants to post to the server. Okay, who is the carrier of our information? So HTTP request will be our carrier of information. So there are two kinds of HTTP majorly. So one is HTTP request and one is HTTP response. So in those two messages, so they will be having HTTP head and HTTP body. So whenever you are making a request, so it is called the request body. So similarly, whenever you are my server is responding, again it will going to have two portions, guys. Obviously, the first portion will be header. So we call it as a header. Then it will going to also have a body. समझ में आ रहा है ना? So request को भी head and body होगा, response को भी head and body होगा. Okay. So now when you make a post request, my server will be able to get some data from the front end. So we will be able to create a resource. So when are we supposed to use this post method? We should use this post whenever you have to create any resource on your server. You are supposed to use this post method. So they call it as an entity. Entity is nothing but your resource. So they are saying that to change the state. So what do you mean by state? State means we know that we created an employee object. So suppose we wanted to change the so there are, let's say there are set of employees. Okay, and Srinath is a new employee. So in the server of my company, so they have to create a new resource as an employee. That employee is nothing but my entity. Entity is nothing but my particular what you can say as of now current understanding. Think about the particular class. In that particular class, we want to create an object, one object for Srinath. So let's say you are all part of the company. All of you will have one object of this particular entity called as employee. Employee is an entity. Similarly, student will be an entity. So that particular entity will try to understand when we write our backend. So entity defines our object, or entity defines our table structure in the backend. That we'll discuss later. As of now, you can imagine that it wants to create a resource in our backend. That is information about a particular resource. So whenever you have to do it, you need to use a post method. Similarly, whenever you have to, it is for new resource. Whenever you want to replace the existing resource, then you need to use a put method. So it will going to replace all current representation of the target resource with a requested payload. So where is the payload? Payload is nothing but your HTTP request body. Payload will be there in the body. It is just like a you can imagine a lorry. So lorry will going to have a driver in the front compartment. You can imagine that is a header. So it knows where is the source and where is the destination. But at the back of a lorry, so or a truck, you can imagine that is a payload. Correct? No? Imagine it is carrying you cement bags. So from source to destination, it will carry. Correct? No? So like that, my HTTP request is having a header as well as a body. In that body, it can carry the payload. That payload will be whatever you want to send. So whenever you want to replace or update a resource, so you need to use a put method. So whenever you want to replace the complete resource, so Srinath information, entire object or entire entity you want to replace, then you need to go for put. Similarly, you want to delete something, delete an existing resource. Okay, based on your authorization and your permission to delete or manipulate a resource, you will be able to modify a resource or delete a resource. So whenever you want to delete, you need to send a HTTP delete request. So suppose if I want to delete a product from my cart, there will be, imagine there will be a cart. We know that shopping cart. So I want to delete a particular item from my cart. So then I should be able to make a delete request to my backend. So my backend will be removing that product from your cart. Similarly, I want to update my password. Which method are you going to use, guys? Can we use put?
Yes.
So there is a confusion here. So whenever you have to use or replace all the current representations, then you can go for put. Whenever you want to replace a current existing resource, go for put. but my email ID I want to change now. So then I need to use a method called as a patch method. So all these things are conventions, guys. Okay, I can use put or I can also use patch, but as per the conventions, this method should be used to do some partial modification of the results. So basically, we are going to use these methods. So I'm going to write it here. So we're going to use get, post. Let me write them all here. Then we have patch, and we have basically we are trying to do the CRUD operations. So let me map them. What is C, guys? Any idea, guys? What is C?
Create.
C is create, correct? Now, which HTTP method we should use? This C is for creating, so we need to use post method. This is for reading now. Guys, can you map it? Which HTTP method we are supposed to use to read a resource or get a resource? Simple, get. So whenever you want to update,
Patch.
I have two methods. One is we have a put to replace, and we have a patch for partial update. Very good. So for this delete, we have a direct method delete.
Delete, yes.
So using these method names, so we will be, both my client and a server will be having an understanding. So if you're deleting, I will be writing one method to delete a resource. If you want to read, I will be writing one method in my backend server so that it will read and give it to you. For every operations, what you want to do, I will be writing one method. So my server will be able to respond to you based on a reactive way. All my methods will not be simply running. So it will be waiting for your request. As soon as you make a request, so there will be certain mechanism based on which a particular method will be there, which is already mapped by us as a programmer that will going to respond. Suppose you are making a get request. So then I'm going to write one method in the backend that will take your request. So you will be making from the client side, you can make any of these requests which are available in my backend. If I write a method, then only you can make an access to my server through those HTTP methods. There should be a method, no? There should be one piece of software that will be listening and making the process of your request. Okay, so right, guys. So that's about HTTP request methods. So along with this HTTP, this particular HTTP protocol can also carry something called as HTTP status codes, guys. One second. This one. So let's have a look into this one. One second. Okay. One second, guys. So there is something called as HTTP status code. So when these client and servers are talking to each other, so they also send some status codes. Suppose if anything gets successful, my server will going to send you some success code. If something goes wrong in the application, then it will going to send you some error codes. Okay, so what are all the different categories of these error codes or status codes? So basically there are 5 different categories, guys. One is informational, second one is successful, redirectional, client error, and a server error. So usually whenever something is successfully processed by my backend, it will going to send you a response in this range, 200 to 299. So similarly, if something goes wrong with respect to the application inside my business logic, okay, let's say I want to transfer some fund nahi hai. So then the status code will be an client error response. So that should range from 400 to 499. Suppose if something goes wrong with the environment where my application is running, so then it is called as a server error response. Suppose we are using MySQL server, SQL में थोड़ा error आ जाएगा. So then it will going to send you the server error that is ranging from 500 to 599. So let's say we are running our application on a Tomcat. So the Tomcat has got some error. So then that error will be having a range from 500 to 599. So similarly, let's say you want to send some informational response. So then you can use these code from 100 to 199. Okay. Suppose if there is any change in the resource URL, then you can give redirectional messages in this range. So you can also have a look into them here. So these are all your informational responses. So I want all of you to go through them later. You guys can go through them. If my server responds with 100, then it is telling you to continue. Okay, these are all some of the messages. So as a developer, these are all very important for me. If you send 200 from your backend, then that means the request is successfully done. So suppose somebody is making a GET request. So then we're going to send him the message, or we're going to transmit him the information, whatever he has requested, through HTTP response. And along with that response, we'll also send him this HTTP status code, which is 200. So suppose he wants to create some resource, you can also send him 201. A specific information you can give, that the particular thing got created, particular request got accepted, so and so on. Okay, these are all the new status codes which they are expecting. So whenever you are designing something, so in the design they will be having a requirement. Suppose such a requirement arises, so you have to respond with such a status code. So while responding, you have to send this particular status code. Similarly, the examples for redirectional messages are: suppose a resource is moved permanently, a resource is found. Okay, so something like these are all the informations about my redirectional messages. The resource is not particularly present, or it has been moved. Then these are all the error status codes. So I want all of you to read it whenever time permits for you. So similarly, guys, this is important for us because as a developer, these are all the client error messages. Suppose he is not an authorized user, he is making some requests. So then it is called as a bad request. So I'm going to send him a status code called 400. He is not logged in, I will say unauthorized. So he's going to download something which is a paid version. Then I will going to say him that payment required through 402 status code. So this is forbidden. So he's making a request for a resource, maybe an employee called Srinath. Let's say I have not registered yet. So you need to respond that that resource is not found. Okay. And suppose on a particular resource, you cannot delete. So then you can say that you cannot delete that particular resource. Method not allowed, not acceptable. So all these are all various status codes through which you will be able to communicate back to the requester. So these are all the codes that will be sent usually from a server to the client. So they are all called as HTTP status codes. So similarly, guys, so we have a set of codes that are given by the server. So you might have come across this. Have you guys come across this?
Yes, sir.
So internal server error. It is not with respect to the application which we developed. It might have happened because of my environment where I am running my application. And also one more important code is 404, guys. You guys might have come across that also very frequently. There is 404, yeah. 404, page not found, correct now?
Yes, sir.
Page not found, will go, you guys will going to get it. Right. So let me just, okay. Okay, this is about the HTTP protocol. So if you want in detail idea about how exactly HTTP protocol works, of course, you can dig in more about HTTP protocol. I'm not getting into that network terminologies and how it is, how the engineers have implemented that particular technology. So, but in an application side, my client will be making an HTTP request so that my server will be able to get that request over the internet. So then my server will be able to respond. That response, HTTP response will be able to travel through the internet and reach your browser. So the technology is already there. So what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to create this server and we are supposed to create this client. Okay. So in our syllabus, if you have a look into it, so you can see here. So we'll be trying to understand our RDBMS. That is where we are going to store our data permanently. Then we're going to try to understand something called as a Spring framework, using which we'll be developing our server application. Okay, that is called as a Spring framework. So we're going to have a very long session to understand and try to develop an application using our Spring framework. Okay, so until here, it is all about Spring. Then using the Spring framework, we're going to create a microservices. So microservices means, so let's say there is a very large program is there, large problem statement is there. Then we're going to slice that large problem into smaller solutions. And then we're going to put all these microservices to work as a single application. Just like if you look at the honeybees, all honeybees will be working independently, but they will going to collect and work for the particular honey, for the particular honey collection for their particular entire family. So it all will work as a single family. So just like that. So we're going to create multiple Spring Boot applications. They all will work as a microservices, and they will be yet working as a single or delivering a solution for a single or a same problem. Okay, so that is what we will be discussing in microservices. Then we're going to Dockerize those microservices. That means we will see what is Docker and how to Dockerize it. And then we'll be able to Yes, we'll be able to create the Docker images of our application. And then we talk about some of the features of our Spring Boot framework. And then we have some tools that will help us to manage or maintain our application. All those tools here we'll be discussing about them. And finally, that's what we discuss about these tools. There are Redis is there, okay, Kafka is there, Prometheus is there, Grafana is there. They're all the tools. So using which we'll be able to manage or monitor our application. So these are all the things which we'll be doing only with respect to the backend, guys. So why I'm just running through the syllabus is because we all will be focusing only on the backend. So front end portion, we will not be focusing. That means, so in our curriculum, we will be focusing on developing our backend. So we will be able to get, or we'll be able to process all the requests which my client might ask for. He might ask for post request, he might ask for get, he might ask for put, patch, or a delete. So we will try to write methods. These methods, we're going to call them as RESTful APIs or APIs, application program interfaces. So through which my client will be able to access my server application. Okay, so my server will be exposed to the world through these APIs. So these APIs will be used by my front end, but we'll not be focusing on creation of the front end. Only we'll be doing the or development of only backend. And then finally, we're going to take up one project. So for 10 days, we'll be doing the project. So our backend will be ready. The backend can be tested using a tool called as Swagger. So we have something called as a Swagger. 1 second, let me see the Swagger. We have a Swagger. So using Swagger, we'll be able to use our application in the sense we'll be able to, instead of creating this client, we're going to have a tool. With the help of a tool, we'll be able to do all these operations with respect to our server. Okay, so what I'll be showing you now is I'll be showing you one demo of this particular technology. Okay, so I'll show you one demo using which you'll be able to understand how or what we'll be developing in this particular project at the end of our session. So during this your project time, so what sort of application you will be developing. Okay, guys. So let me just give you a demo how my application, final application, will going to look like. Okay, guys. So we're going to discuss about this particular technology, how we are going to develop it. But I'm right now, I have an application which I will be directly running now. So ultimately, this is a Spring Boot application that we're going to create. So what we need to understand here is we are going to run our application on a Tomcat server like this. Okay, so our application will be available in this particular port number like 8090. So my application is running right now on this particular port number, and I will be able to access my application. We call it as the endpoints. So what are all the endpoints available in my server or APIs available in my server? So these are all the APIs available in my server. So I can go to something called as a Swagger, guys. So right now, so I shown you where is my server running. My server is running on 8090 port number. So I need to say localhost because my server is running on my same machine, same laptop. I call this as a localhost. If I'm running on any other remote server, I need that URL or I need the static IP of that particular server. If I get the URL, you just replace that local host with the URL of the server. Okay, then it is listening on this particular port number and I'm running one tool called as a Swagger UI. So I did not create this UI. So it comes as a tool for me to know what are all the APIs are there in this particular server. This is the location of my server. That is localhost 8090 is the location of my server. So on top of it, if I try to access this Swagger UI, all of you, please, you can observe here. So ultimately, we will be creating an application and we're going to access them using this Swagger. So this Swagger will going to give me access to all these APIs. API is nothing but application program interface. So let me also give you the, so everything you will get it on Google, guys. What is API? Okay, you need to understand what is API. So basically, whenever my client has to interact with my server should have those APIs. So using those APIs, my client can do some operations or some CRUD operations it will be able to do on my resources. So for example, so we will be doing or we will be working towards creating this REST APIs, guys. Okay, first of all, try to understand what is an API. Then we will try to understand what is a REST API. So you can refer various websites, guys. Try to understand what is an API. So just like our interface, so we will be able to create some certain APIs. So whichever APIs we expose, only those functionalities my client will be able to access. Okay, right now, if you observe in my server, only these operations are available. One is to post a customer, get a customer, and update a customer and delete a customer. Okay, so now let me just give you these links as well. You guys please refer them. Try to understand API first. So these are all the endpoints which I'm exposing to the world or to the client. So through which, and also my server will be able to do only RESTful responses. RESTful, I want to understand RESTful API. One second, guys. One second, guys. Okay, all of you, please refer these links. Give me a second. Yes, guys. So I was talking about a RESTful API. Okay. There are multiple resources on the internet, guys, so you can refer anything. So only thing is you need to get an idea. So what will happen if my server starts processing your request, and also it will start processing your GUI. So it has to do, all of you please observe here, it has to process your business logic, plus it also has to process your GUI, how that particular process data has to be presented to the client. So if it has to do both business logic plus GUI, then my server will be overloaded. Correct? Now, instead of giving you this particular GUI, what it will do, it will not going to give you the GUI, or it will not going to give you the graphics. It will simply give you the representational state of the data. So that means it will going to simply send you the text information about the employee. Okay, or else it will going to give you the HTML of the employee. So you have to render that HTML. Otherwise, it will going to give you the state of the object or the resource in a simple JSON format. So it will not going to give you the GUI. So it will going to give you the response in a RESTful manner. So that means it will going to give you RESTful data. RESTful means it's a representation of my data. What is the answer? Let's say, what is the temperature in Delhi? It will give you only the temperature value. It will not give you the graphics, how it should be displayed. You can display that in a red color, or if it is raining, you will also can create a GUI like it in, it is cloudy on the particular area called Delhi. Okay. So for example, so if you go to Google Map, okay, Google Map. So if I go to Delhi, or let me go to Coorg. Coorg is nothing but Madikeri. So it's heavily raining there as of now. Okay, I think it's not showing me here. So, but if you go to maps, so weather. Okay, I think in this particular web application, it is not showing. Maybe you might have seen in your mobiles. If you go and check weather app, correct? So it will going to give you the representation of that weather in graphically, correct? So that particular graphical processing will not be the responsibility of our backend. It will simply give you the temperature. So similarly, suppose we develop a backend for our stock market. So right now, what is the price of a particular stock in Indian stock? Or maybe you talk about Nifty, or you talk about any particular stock exchange. So it will going to give you the value. It will going to give you the representational state of your resource. So let's say you want information about an employee called Srinath. So it will going to give you the state of that particular resource in a JSON format. Okay, so popular way of representational state format, or usually my REST applications, if it responds you in a RESTful way, then I'm going to call them as RESTful APIs. So let's look into this particular JSON format. So what is JSON? JSON is just a representation of my object in this JavaScript object notation. So it's very simple. So suppose my name is John. I'm going to represent that in this particular key and a value pair. And then this is my first attribute. This is my second attribute, and this is my third attribute. So like that, I can have n number of key value pair, and I'm going to assemble them inside these curly braces. So this represents the state of one resource. Okay, this is a simple notation which is adopted by my JavaScript. So the entire world accepted this particular format to represent the state. So this will be used to communicate between my server and a client. So JSON format, we're going to use it to respond. So we're not going to give you any graphics. So it's a simple piece of text. So what is the advantage for my server now? My server can be quick now. Instead of processing you some graphics here, for example, you look at this particular web page itself. So it has got some images, it has got some information about the menu bars and etc. there. So instead of that, it can give you just the data. However, you want to present it in the GUI that you develop using your front-end frameworks. So my Tomcat server will be less burdened. So it has to focus only on my business logic. It does not have to worry about your GUI. You develop however GUI you want. That will be taken care by my people who are working on this particular framework. Any questions here, guys? Because I'm adding more and more things. So if you can respond me, then I can clear your doubts and then I can proceed. Are you getting it, guys?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, nice, nice. So let's quickly have one demo. So you guys will get it very quickly. So we'll develop an application, and that application we call it as a backend. And these are all our APIs. So I have created one method for posting, or in my server, if I have to show you. बहुत ही simple है. So I have created one method called as post mapping. That means if you are making a post request, HTTP post request, then this is the method that will going to execute for your post request. So that means, so from your Swagger, so this is your Swagger. I did not create this. This is a tool. So you just, I will show you how to incorporate this tool into our project later. So then I just clicked on try it. So then I'll get this JSON format. So I will be able to add these informations like customer ID, or this is one application wherein he is trying to add some information, guys. Whatever information you want to add, so you will be able to add it. So for example, here the customer ID is getting auto generated. Let me remove this. So some application, gas booking application, this one. Okay. So I'm giving some ID here. All of you please observe here. So this is the payload, or this is my data. I'm giving it in a JSON format and I'm executing it. So execute means I'm posting this JSON to my server. So as soon as you post it, when you click on execute, it is creating one HTTP request. So that HTTP request is my HTTP post method. The HTTP post is sending this JSON data along with my request body. So this data is coming to my server. Where it will be coming? It will be coming to this particular port number. So what is running on your port number? On that particular port number, my application is running. My application will be running on that particular port number. My application, online gas booking application, is running there. So it will get that request. So as soon as it gets that request, I have written one method. So this particular method will be able to take your HTTP post mapping on this URL. What is the URL? You are using a post customer URL. This is the / customer URL. If you're making this request, post request on this URL, so then this is the method responsible to take that request. So because you're sending one JSON data, I'm writing one annotation here. So we'll talk about these annotations later. It will going to convert your JSON data to the object of this particular class. So, and then it will going to further process it, and finally it's going to store it in my database. That technology we'll understand later. Okay, ultimately it will go and store it in my database. So whatever it stores, it is responding me back. So automatically it is creating the ID for me. The customer ID I did not post. You can see I did not give any ID. Automatically it has given me the ID. It uniquely represents my customer. So this is the ID called 16. So I have created one resource or some data on the server. You can also see what my server is responding here. Insert into customer. Customer is an entity. So it has inserted these data. So now I'll also be able to check. So there is one more API created, which is get all customers. If I click this, if I try it out, if I execute, I don't have to give any information. You can see here. I want to get all the customer information. If I execute, you can see there are so many customers available in my database now. So I think this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. There are 4 customers right now available. So the recent customer which I added is here. Please observe, all my APIs are RESTful APIs. It will give you the representational state of your object. One second, guys. 1 second. All of you, please observe. It is not at all giving any graphics to me. Okay, I'm making a request to give all the customers now. You can see it is giving me in an array format. You can look at this particular square bracket, guys. So square bracket represents array. So it is giving me the JSON of multiple customers. So this is one JSON body, one object. So this is the second object. So like that, this is the third object. This is the fourth object. And this is the array of all my JSON objects. Okay. So now what I want to do, let's say this is my get all customers. So let's say I want to delete a particular customer. Okay, let's update it and then delete it. So let's say I want to update a particular customer. So this update, this particular put method is for replacing, correct now? So now let me replace this particular entire information. So let me show you once again, what is the data available with the ID 16. All of you please observe, this is the data. I want to completely replace this. Okay. So then I'm going to use a method called put method. So as soon as you execute this, so it will be executing one put mapping in my backend, that's all. So this is for post, this is for your get mapping. So this is for your put mapping. Okay. You want to update your resource. So go ahead. 1 second. So you need to tell me the ID of the current customer. Then only I'll be able to update it. Correct. Now, what do you mean by update? The resource should be there. Then only you'll be able to update it. So this is the current information about your customer. Okay. So you can update it. So let me make this cylinder ID equal to 99. Okay. Some information. Bank ID equal to 9. I'm making all 9 so that we can understand. Account number equal to 999. IFSC code to 99. So this also let me make it as 99. Okay. So but customer ID remains the same, guys. So now let me execute this. All of you please look into it. So your customer ID 16 got executed and all your resource got replaced. Major your entire entity information got updated. So now let me go and execute get all customers. So let me execute this. So get all customers. So let's see what is the information, whether it got updated or not. Do you see there, guys? My customer ID got 16 got updated now.
Yes, sir.
Correct now. So this is my put method. So similarly, guys, so I can also go ahead and there is one API. API means one method. So this is my delete method. If I make a request here, so based on the ID, click on try it out. Very simple. So I want to delete a resource called 16. So it has got a unique number. So what is the URL? URL is customer only. But what is the HTTP method? HTTP method is delete method. If you are making a HTTP delete request on this URL, and if you send me the ID, then I'm going to delete that resource. We are going to write the software in the backend that we will see later. So you simply execute it. So it has given me status code here, guys. What is 200? Guys, what is status 200?
Successfully.
Success, correct? Na? Success, na? So my server is telling me it is success. So now go to the get all customers, execute, and please see that there is no record having an ID 16. I have only 3 objects. My ID 16 got deleted. 13 is there, 14 is there, 12 is also there, 16 is not there. We just now successfully deleted a resource having a ID 16. From which entity? It's a customer entity. So like this, over a period of next weeks, so we will be learning a technology. We will be able to create a Spring Boot application. Using that framework, we're going to create a RESTful APIs. So those RESTful APIs, these are all my RESTful APIs. Okay, those RESTful APIs, I will be able to access them through this particular Swagger, like this. So I'll be able to create a login API. You create me username and a password. My backend will be able to tell you whether it is a successful login or a failure login. So similarly, you will be able to add products as an admin. You will be able to add. I'll be creating some APIs so that you will be able to add some mobiles to my mobile application. You will be able to add a mobile, update a mobile, delete a mobile, or get the mobile details. Correct? Those are all the APIs to see the resource called entity called mobile. So similarly, there will be a user. So we'll be able to add a user, update a user, delete a user, and get a user information. So like this, we'll create all the APIs. Then we use these APIs to create our front-end application. Okay, guys. So have you guys got an idea how we will be developing, or how this particular client server architecture we are going to use, and we're going to create finally RESTful APIs? Those
Sir,
APIs, yes.
sir, what is the difference between Postman and Swagger?
Both are same, but the thing is, Postman is also a tool, Swagger is also a tool. This particular Swagger will also serve as a documentation. See, for example, if you look at this, anybody can tell you that there are 4 APIs. So these are all the endpoints available. But in Postman, if you go, you have to give these URLs, and you need to select these methods, HTTP methods, and you need to remember these URLs. For example, here, this is the URL. We also call it as a URI. URI means Universal Resource Identifier, because I'm trying to identify a resource through a URL. For example, this is called as a URI. I'm identifying the particular resource in my customer. So using this URI, okay, I am making a HTTP delete request. So that's why I'm deleting a particular resource. So these things you have to give it manually, that's all. So here it is able to understand automatically. And also it serves you a purpose to test your API, and also it serves as a documentation. So that is the difference. So you can see, as soon as you see this, so you can say there are 4 APIs. So that is the advantage of Swagger. And you don't have to install anything there. We will see when we do this Swagger. Yes, Postman is also one of the popular one. Yes, we'll use that also. No issues. It's
Yes,
also
sir.
quite simple. Yeah. Don't use करेंगे. We'll get exposure. We'll spend 1 hour and we'll learn about Postman also. Yeah. Any other questions, guys? So right now, what I want all of you is to go through all these terminologies, guys. What is HTTP? What is RESTful? What is CORS? CORS ना? CORS आएगा ना? बीच में CORS policy. CORS. What is CORS? So all these things, I want all of you to go through it. Okay. Any questions, guys? Was it interesting, guys? Or did I explain that got you some interest? Were you able to follow? Guys, any questions?
Method is also encrypted like post.
Sorry, your voice is very low.
Sir, is put method, sir, put is also encrypted like post.
See, you can send a data using post and a put, but generally, what is the purpose of that method? The purpose of your post is to create a new resource, whereas the purpose of put method is to replace a resource. So accordingly, we should use those HTTP methods.
Sir, I was asking, like, if we make authentication page using GET, So sir, it will put the password, or it will also put the password in the URL. It can be visible to everyone.
That's correct. That's
But
correct.
sir, it not be possible using post. Sir, it is same as post input also.
Mhm. Yes, yes, you're right. So it will go as a body. It will not go as a URL. You're right. So whenever you are making a GET request, it will be visible on the URL. Whereas if you're going to make a post, it will not be visible on the URL. What he is saying is very good. That's a good question. So it will go, you can observe in this particular Swagger. Suppose if I'm making a post on the URL, you don't see anything there. So you will see that in the body of the particular request. Okay, 1 second, guys. Yes, guys. So you can see here, it is going, see, these are all your header informations. Okay. So this is your HTTP method. So this is the body in which in your request body, this data is going. So this is called as a payload. So this is for your post. Similarly, in put also, it will be going in the same fashion. You see, only the HTTP method is different. Even the URL is also same. So we are making a combination of this URL and this HTTP method. So for a put, you will be able to send a data. So your question is, see, suppose if you are going for a delete method, so we are sending this ID in the URL. So this is exposed, whereas the data which we are sending in the body is not exposed. You will be able to encrypt it and send it. But right now we are not encrypting it. It is going as a plain data. So similarly, when we get the request for all the customers, so it will be sending you through the HTTP, just like request. So it will be sending us this particular entire information as a response body. You can see this is our response body. Status code is 200. We just made this particular HTTP GET request. Okay. So this was the URL. We did not send any data. We just made HTTP GET request. So my server responded with this code and with this data. So this data came along with the response body. So look at the image here. So there is a header and there is a body. In this body, it came with some data. So that data is this JSON data. It came with this array of JSON records. Am I clear, guys? Guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, guys. So that's all about our client server architecture and the RESTful APIs that we'll be doing in this particular training. So, and that's the introduction and the demo of these particular technologies. So I'm going to mark them completed, guys. If you have any questions, anytime, you don't hesitate, you can ask me. Okay, these are all the things we just now covered. So front end, I did not show you. Okay, so I just shown you the Swagger. So of course we can also run the front end, and I'll be able to show you. So uh, one second, guys. Let me run this. Just give me a second. Let me run this. So you guys can observe there that it's a simple front end design. So which is running on a different server, guys. So it is running on my Node.js server, which is running on localhost 3000 port number. Okay, your backend is running on port number 8090, whereas your front end server is running on a different port number. Okay, so for example, this is an add customer is there. You can see all the information I will be able to insert through a GUI. Okay, this is a typical example. Okay, so it can be developed in a much better way. So this was one of my student. He was trying to I was trying to help him with some bug fixes. So that's why it is there in my system right now. So I will be able to give a cylinder ID. Let me give it in 7 range. So bank ID is 7, account ID is 777, IFSC code ICICI 0077, PAN number JPR 777. Okay, I'm submitting this. Okay, okay, it is doing some validation there. So we'll talk about all these things. Okay, you can see that. So they have created these. They are trying to access my APIs called post customer using this particular GUI. Okay, so you'll also be able to see them through the GUI itself by clicking on this. So just now we created this particular customer. Okay, so they have created a GUI to update it and also delete it. So this is a GUI in which using which they are trying to show you all these JSON data. Okay, guys. So instead of, say, suppose if I go for this particular endpoint, it will give you in this particular JSON format. Correct? No? So this array using some front-end frameworks, they are displaying it like a table like this. But also they are giving some buttons so that you will be able to access them. Suppose if I want to, let's say this is our, okay, there are 4 records right now. Correct? So using front end, I'll be able to delete it. Okay. I don't have any unique things to identify. Let's say, let me update it. So let me update this IFSC code to AA, submit. So now your IFSC code got updated to this one. Let me update all of them. Let me update it to BBB. So it has become BB. can observe this. All my IFSC code got updated, guys. Correct now? So now let me go to my Swagger. I'll be able to see the same result here. So using the APIs, so they have created a GUI to update my resource. Correct now? So we'll not be going to work on this creation of front end, guys. So we'll be simply creating only the back end. And of course, we'll be able to delete a resource also. For example, we created this 7.7 now. So you can see 7.7 is also available here. So if you want to delete, so using this front end also I'll be able to delete. Okay, or we're going to delete this using our Swagger also. So what do you need to understand? So our job is to create this backend APIs. So front-end developer job is to create the front end like that. He will going to make use of your delete API. He will be internally calling this API to delete the resource. Am I clear? So this front end will be using our API to delete this resource. Is that clear, guys? So it will be able to delete my resource. Similarly, if you come here, so that particular resource will be deleted. You can see. So ultimately, your front end depends on our backend APIs. This is what we'll be doing in our future classes. Any questions, guys?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, guys. So all of you, please go through the links, whatever I've given, but also please try to explore. If you get any doubts, you can make a note of those questions. I'll be able to answer them.